Hey friends, welcome back for chapter 2 of our Narnia reading. Lucy has just entered the wardrobe and we're going to find out what she found in the snowy wood by the lamppost when she saw the fawn. Ready? Chapter 2, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. What Lucy found there. Good evening, said Lucy, but the fawn was so busy picking up its parcels that it at first did not reply. When it had finished, it made her a little bow. Good evening, said the fawn. Excuse me, I don't want to be inquisitive, but should I be right in thinking that you are a daughter of Eve? My name's Lucy, she said, not quite understanding him. But you are, forgive me, you are what they call a girl, asked the fawn. Of course I'm a girl, said Lucy. You're in fact human? Of course I'm human, said Lucy, still a little puzzled. To be sure, said the fawn. How stupid of me. I've never seen a son of Adam or a daughter of Eve before. I am delighted. That is to say, and then it stopped, as if it was going to say something it had not intended, but remembered in time. Delighted, it went on. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Tumnus. I'm very pleased to meet you, Mr. Tumnus, said Lucy. And may I ask, oh, daughter of Eve, said Mr. Tumnus, how have you come to Narnia? Narnia? What's that? asked Lucy. This is the land of Narnia, said the fawn, where we are right now. All that lies between the lampposts and the great castle of Cair Paravel on the eastern sea, and you have come from the wild woods of the west. I got in through the wardrobe in the spare room, said Lucy. Ah, said Mr. Tumnus in a rather melancholy voice. If only I'd worked harder at geography when I was a little fawn, I should no doubt know all these things. I should no doubt know all about those strange countries. It is too late now. And they aren't countries at all, said Lucy, almost laughing. It's only just back there. At least, I'm not sure. It's summer there. Meanwhile, said Mr. Tumnus, it is winter in Narnia, and has been for ever so long, and we shall both catch cold if we stand here talking in the snow. Daughter of Eve, from the far land of Spare Room, where the eternal summer reigns around the bright city of Wardrobe, how would it be if you came to have tea with me? Thank you very much, Mr. Tumnus, said Lucy, but I was wondering whether I ought to be getting back. It's just around the corner, said the fawn, and there'll be a roaring fire, and toast, and sardines, and cake. Well, it's very kind of you, said Lucy, but I shan't be able to stay long. If you will take my arm, daughter of Eve, said Mr. Tumnus, I shall be able to hold the umbrella over both of us. That's the way. Now, off we go. And so Lucy found herself walking through the wood, arm in arm with this strange creature, as if they'd known one another all their lives. They had not gone far before they came to a place where the ground became rough, and there were rocks all about, and little hills up and little hills down. At the bottom of one small valley, Mr. Tumnus turned suddenly aside, as if he were going to walk straight into an unusually large rock. But at the last moment, Lucy found that he was leading her into the entrance of a cave. As soon as they were inside, she found herself blinking in the light of a wood fire. Then Mr. Tumnus stooped and took a flaming piece of wood out of the fire with a neat little pair of tongs and lit a lamp. Now, we shan't be long, he said, and immediately put a kettle on. Lucy thought she had never been in a nicer place. It was a little, dry, clean cave of reddish stone with a carpet on the floor and 2 little chairs, one for me and one for a friend, said Mr. Tumnus, and a table and a dresser and a mantelpiece over the fire, and above that a picture of an old fawn with a gray beard. In one corner there was a door which Lucy thought must lead to Mr. Tumnus's bedroom, and on one wall a shelf full of books. Lucy looked at these while he was setting out the tea things. They had titles like The Life and Letters of Silenus, or Nymphs and Their Ways, or Men, Monks, and Gamekeepers, A Study in Popular Legend, or Is Man a Myth? Here's a picture of his cave. What do you think? Now, daughter of Eve, said the fawn, it really was a wonderful tea. There was a nice brown egg lightly boiled for each of them, and sardines on toast, and then buttered toast, and then toast with honey, and then sugar-topped cake. Lucy was tired of eating, the fawn began to talk. He had wonderful tales to tell her of life in the forest. He told her about midnight dances and how the nymphs who lived in the wells and the dryads who lived in the trees came out to dance with the fawns, and how long hunting parties after a milk-white stag who could give you wishes if you caught him, about feasting and treasure sinking with the red dwarves in the deep mines and caverns far beneath the forest floor, and then about summer, when the woods were green and old Silenus on his fat donkey would come up and visit them, and sometimes Bacchus himself, and the streams would run with wine instead of water, and the whole forest would give itself up to jollification for weeks on end. Not that it isn't always winter now, he added gloomily. Then, to cheer himself up, he took out from his case on the dresser a strange little flute that looked as though it were made of straw and began to play. And the tune he played made Lucy want to cry and laugh and dance and go to sleep all at the same time. It must have been hours later when she shook herself awake. Real quick, here are the illustrations of the stories he was telling. She shook herself awake and said, "Oh, Mr. Tumnus, I'm so sorry to stop you. I do love that tune, but really I must go home. I only meant to stay for a few minutes." "It's no good now, you know," said the fawn, laying down his flute and shaking its head at her very sorrowfully. "No good?" said Lucy, jumping up and feeling rather frightened. "What do you mean? I've got to get home at once. The others will be wondering what has happened to me." But a moment later she asked, "Mr. Tumnus, whatever is the matter?" For the fawn's brown eyes had filled with tears, and tears were trickling down its cheeks and soon running off the end of his nose, and at last it covered his face with its hands and began to howl. "Mr. Tumnus! Mr. Tumnus!" said Lucy in great distress. Don't! What is the matter? Aren't you well? Mr. Tumnus, do tell me what's wrong." But the fawn continued sobbing as if its heart would break. And even when Lucy went over and put her arms around him and lent him her handkerchief, he did not stop. He merely took the handkerchief and kept using it, wringing it out with both hands whenever it got too wet to be of any more use, so that presently Lucy was standing on a damp patch. Look at him crying. "Mr. Tumnus," bawled Lucy in his ear, shaking him, "do stop. Stop it at once. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, a great big fawn like you. What on earth are you crying about?" Oh, sobbed Mr. Tumnus. "I'm crying because I'm such a bad fawn." "I don't think you're a bad fawn at all," said Lucy. "I think you're a very good fawn. You're the nicest fawn I've ever met." "Oh, you wouldn't say that if you knew," replied Mr. Tumnus between sobs. "No, I'm a bad fawn. I don't suppose there ever was a worse fawn since the beginning of the world." "What have you done?" asked Lucy. "My old father now," said Mr. Tumnus. "That's his picture over the mantelpiece. He would never have done a thing like this." "A thing like what?" said Lucy. "Like what I've done," said the fawn. "Taken service under the White Witch. That's what I am. I'm in the pay of the White Witch." "The White Witch? Who is she?" "Why, it is she that has all of Narnia under her thumb. It's she that makes it always winter, and never Christmas. Think of that." "How awful," said Lucy. "But what does she pay you for?" "That's the worst of it," said Mr. Tumnus with a deep groan. "I'm a kidnapper for her. That's what I am. Look at me, daughter of Eve. Would you believe that I'm the sort of fawn that would meet a poor, innocent child in the wood, one that has never done me any harm, and pretend to be friendly with it, invite it into my home, my cave, all for the sake of lulling it to sleep and then handing it over to the White Witch?" "No," said Lucy, "I'm sure you wouldn't do anything of that sort." "But I have," said the fawn. "Well," said Lucy rather slowly, for she wanted to be truthful and yet not be too hard on him. "Well, that was pretty bad. But you're so sorry that I'm sure you'll never do it again." "Daughter of Eve, don't you understand?" said the fawn. "It isn't something I have done. I'm doing it now. This very moment." "What do you mean?" cried Lucy, turning very white. "You are the child," said Tumnus. "I had orders from the White Witch that if I ever saw a son of Adam, or a daughter of Eve in the wood, I was to catch them and hand them over to her. And you were the first I've ever met. I pretended to be your friend. I asked you to tea, and all the time I'm meaning to wait till you are asleep and then go tell her. But you won't, Mr. Tumnus, said Lucy. You won't, will you? Indeed, indeed, you really mustn't. And if I don't, he said, beginning to cry again, she's sure to find out. She'll have my tail cut off and my horns sewn up and my beard plucked out, and she'll wave her wand over my beautiful cloven hooves and turn them into horrid solid hooves like a wretched horse's. And if she's extra and specially angry with me, she will turn me to stone, and I shall only be a statue of Fawn in her horrible house until the 4 thrones at Cair Paravel are filled, and goodness knows when that will happen, or if it ever will. I'm very sorry, Mr. Tumnus, said Lucy, but please, let me go home. Of course I will, said the Fawn. Of course I've got to. I see that now. I hadn't known what humans were like before I met you. Of course I can't give you up to the witch, not now, not now that I know you. But we must be off at once. I'll see you back to the lamppost. I suppose you can find your own way back there to spare room and wardrobe. I'm sure I can, said Lucy. We must go as quietly as we can, said Mr. Tumnus. The whole wood is full of her spies. Even some of the trees are on her side. Look at them. Do you see them in the night? They both got up and left the tea things on the table. Mr. Tumnus once more put on his umbrella and gave Lucy his arm, and they went out into the snow. The journey back was not at all like the journey to the Fawn's cave. They stole along as quietly as they could, without speaking a word, and Mr. Tumnus kept to the darkest places. Lucy was relieved when they reached the lamppost again. Do you know your way from here, daughter of Eve? Said Tumnus. Lucy looked very hard between the trees and could just see in the distance a patch of light that looked like daylight. Yes, she said. I can see the wardrobe door. Then be off, as quick as you can, said the Fawn. And can you ever forgive me for what I meant to do? Of course I can, said Lucy, shaking him heartily by the hand. And I do hope you won't get into dreadful trouble on my account. Farewell, daughter of Eve, said he. Perhaps I may keep the handkerchief. Rather, said Lucy, and then ran toward the far patch of daylight as quickly as her legs would carry her. And presently, instead of rough branches brushing past her, she felt coats. Instead of crunching snow under her feet, she felt wooden boards, and all at once she found herself jumping out of the wardrobe into the same empty room from which the whole adventure had started. She shut the wardrobe door tightly behind her and looked around, panting for breath. It was still raining, and she could hear the voices of the others in the passage. I'm here, she shouted. I'm here, I've come back, I'm all right. And that is the end of that chapter. Thank you for joining us for chapter 2 of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and I'm excited for chapter 3 with you.